Hello, everybody, and welcome to a dreary Monday morning here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. My guest today is one who, if you can imagine having your top five people that drive you, that have been your source of information, and that have been being 18 months into this in Virginia and looking at amazing women, Charlotte Iserbyt, Anita Hogue, Stella Morbido, I have to put in there, Jane Addams. So Lynne Taylor, also known as CommonCorediva, it started to become like my go-to source once I realized that, yes, Virginia has had Common Core this entire time. And we'll get into the documents to show it. But even before I found the documents that said blatantly by Governor Bob McDonnell, we will align to Common Core standards. So therefore, we have Common Core because we take standards of learning. We have standards right now, currently hotly debated, the history standards of learning. Williamsburg Town Hall starts today. And I've posted a couple more times. I'll make sure to get it out there because there's like 5 over the next month. And while everybody's talking about it being whitewashed, I've now referred to it as brainwashed. And I'll show kindergarten what their standards of learning for history, and let Lynne tell you why being whitewashed is the least of our worries, if you even were to call it whitewash. And what the problems with the kindergarten standards of learning for civics or learning economics through T-charts. I mean, it's just, and then English. They've now piled English on top of that because history has taken so long. So the standards of learning is Common Core. And so you'll have states, if you're a state that banned Common Core, you're going to be developing, I've looked over Florida, it's Virginia's. Ours have been worse, far more egregious. The nation has been full force fighting, united as Common Core, against Common Core for 10, 15 years. And I was on the Tamara Scott's show last year, and she said something to me. She said, yeah, we thought Virginia was out of the game forever. And I had, at the same time, a Liberty Council, which is in Lynchburg, Virginia, one of their offices, a report to Congress, and it had all the states and all the groups in this massive letter. Lynne was on there, Anita Hogue. I mean, all of these huge leaders across the nation. I was like, and then there's just like, it skipped nothing. Like, where is Virginia? With 46 states are fighting, because even Texas, who didn't have Common Core, have people like Alice Linehan that have been raging about this forever. So the question, then I started to dig, where is Virginia? And then, unfortunately, ruining people, putting peeing in people's Cheerios with the part that this is aisle crossing. This is beyond aisle crossing. When it comes to education, there's one party, and you hear me say it all the time. So I want to introduce Lynne and have her just explain. We have not planned anything out for this, so her thoughts are all her own. And just let her introduce herself to you guys and just how long she's been doing this, and give you a little background on Common Core.
Well, hello, Anne, and thank you so much for having me today. And I'm so glad that the citizens of Virginia are finally waking up. I started fighting against all the standardized education back in 2008, 2009. So I've got a few years under my belt. And, it's been quite a journey. What got me started was I saw what was about to hit my children, because we had been homeschooling for 23 years. That's how many years I have under my belt. And I wanted to find out what was going on so that they could be prepared, because one of the things that we'd always taught them was, do your research, look at more than one source, know what's about to hit the fan. And I read some articles by Tom DeWeese with American Policy Center, and then one by Kathy Duffy, who was a well-known curriculum reviewer for the homeschooling community. And both of them were coming at it from the same angle, that especially Tom's article about the globalization of education and how it was coming into homeschooling. Well, you want to talk about how many people are not listening to you. Try being in a homeschool community where people are not listening to you, going, hey, wait a minute, here's what's coming down the pike for us, and here we are. And now we've seen under the Every Student Succeeds Act that precisely what I was saying and what Tom was pointing to has happened. And that is the collusion of every type of choice that we had was killed when the Every Student Succeeds Act came into de facto rule. And page 17 is our smoking gun. And here's how, because it said clearly, and I quote, all education has to be aligned to the same post-secondary readiness standards as laid out in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, end quote. Now, let's back up. When most people hear this, and this is where a lot of people in Virginia took the bait.
Okay,
all education.
So ESSA, Every Student Succeed, that was Obama.
Yeah, but it was in the works before then, because we have.
So No Child Left Behind, I think, is more. I think that's where Virginia lost their steam in my track record. So I mean, people, the unions. It actually tripled down on No Child Left Behind, but the left seems to calls it. Yeah, even though we know that it's far more abhorrent, so there is a disconnect in, of course, because it's Obama versus Bush, but what the difference between No Child Left Behind and how did we get here with Every Student Succeeds, which is the foundation for what you have to understand for everything, is what I've been telling people.
Right, and here's the thing. A lot of people said, well, the Every Student Succeeds Act killed the No Child Left Behind. Oh, we get to start over. Oh, it killed Common Core. No, it didn't. If you read the entire law, or de facto rule as I call it, No Child Left Behind was codified. It didn't end. It was codified. So was the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. They've all been layered. Mm-hmm. Yes. It had to be to cover their backsides for the framework that had already been set in place by Goals 2000. So it predates even No Child Left Behind. And that goes back to Clinton's administration. Now, we need to understand that in 2004, Bill Gates met with UNESCO and signed a world-class agreement for one world curriculum. Well, let's think about this. Goals 2000 had set the framework. Then we have No Child Left Behind that Virginia did get into. Okay. Then, supposedly they extracted themselves. No, they hid it under the rug. They absolutely did. And I understand you have documents for that. But what I wanted to point out about the Every Student Succeeds Act, and where Virginia bought a lot of the excuse to continue this lie that we never had it, we aren't going to get it, is because when people hear all education and they think public school, that's where the buck stops. No,
if I hear all means all one more time, like I have a list. Like I can't hear people talk about education anymore without twitching.
Right. And here's the thing people don't understand is that our government uses choice buzzwords to tickle our ears and warm our heart. And all or any, especially when it comes to education, are two of the main ones they'll use. Now, what it meant was that it didn't matter if it was public, private, homeschool, hybrid, charter, magnet, IB, AP. It did not matter if it was higher education or not. K through 12, pre-K, because by taking a supposed education law, which is unconstitutional in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm
a big Constitution person, which people, I call it the mythical unicorn. People think is like an option. Right. Is that federalized curriculum is unconstitutional. And
we also have federal statutes that prohibit that as well. But, we see that peed on every single day that Congress interferes. But one of the things that people need to understand is that by taking a Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that was a year old. It was of 2014 and has been reauthorized ever since. You just wrote in cradle to grave, meaning pre-K to adult education. Now, after it said that the standards had to be
Which is
the
lifelong
same,
learner, which is
yes, and
what
that comes
like
that comes from the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, and they coined the term human capital because you're worth more
yes.
as a widget than you are as a person. But one of the things that we need to understand also is that, yeah, you just aligned your standards to workforce readiness, which Virginia is in lock, stock, and barrel. But a few pages later, and it said that all educators have to be credentialed. Now, the government redefined what an educator is to encompass not just teachers, but homeschool
Paraprofessionals.
parents.
Okay. Okay.
So this is why we see so many programs now geared toward, oh, homeschoolers, you have more opportunities now than you ever did. What they don't realize is that the Common Core math is in play, because here in North
Yeah.
Carolina, where I live, in 2013, there was a push to redefine the homeschooling law. Now, we already had 100% freedom, Anne, and here's where the Common Core math came in, because the General Assembly
Fuzzy
said,
math is new
the
math.
the General
The
Assembly
round
said,
up to round down is when I explain it. I'm like, did new math make any sense to you? It didn't to me. 7 years ago. Why are we not teaching carry the one arithmetic? What is this round 17 up to 20, round 7 up to then subtract at the end? And that's
right,
critical thinking
right,
for these new industrial skills they're going to need.
right. Well, where I jokingly say the Common Core math came into the General Assembly was we already had 100% freedom. You cannot improve on 100%. You
No.
just cannot. But they were going to. And the reason why was because our Race to the Top application sold our children for $400 million. And we had state level congressional members stand up and say the reason why we need to redefine homeschooling was to purposely blur the lines between public and private, because North Carolina is one of the few states, and that has homeschooling protected outside of the Department of Education at our state level. But by blending it, you just open the door for virtual schooling. But here's the thing, the virtual schooling is not accredited. So you could spend, and it was supposed to be free, but then it started having a price tag. So now you have these supposed options that give you more opportunity, but no accreditation. So therefore, no one's going to take your education seriously. So it just created more of a mess. But that's here in my state. We've seen the similar happen with this Common Core Career Tech Ed push. Now, I want to point out one thing for Virginia. It has not been called vocational tech since 2006, and here's why. Because at the federal level, the Carl Perkins funding, which did take over vocational tech, that was set aside for higher education, when they opened up Pandora's box and said, okay, we're going to align education from K to adult, that's why
Yeah.
VOTEC had to die, and they replaced it. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people don't know, and I did not send this resource to you, but I can prove it. When Career Tech first came out, here was the original name: Common Career Core Technical Education. When the crap hit the fan over how toxic Common Core was, the association that had that big name said, oh, guess what we're going to do? We're going to pull out two words. And guess which two they pulled out? The common and the core.
Mm-hmm.
But they left the standards there, and those standards are not aligned to post-secondary education, but second grade. And the reasoning was, Anne, well, we don't know how long Johnny and Susie have been out of school. So if they come back to college or community college, or if they get into an apprenticeship, we have to have the bar set so low that it doesn't matter where they came from. We could get them in this system.
Right. Which is like what I'm saying. Like, and then you bring in, equity and the whole, and how all of that layers on top of it. It's like, so, and Glenn Younkin favors their favorite education excellence. Like, what like rational human still living in a world like, yes, Betsy DeVos's new book. And
Okay,
guys,
he is mentioned on page 1. Are you ready for this? And this is my
No.
this is the note I wrote to myself after I read this. Younkin, truthful? Hardly. Now, here's what she says, and this is a quote, and this is from the introduction, and it's titled "The Quiet Part Out Loud." Quote, in the fall of 2021, a politician told the truth and started a movement. Glenn Younkin, the underdog candidate for Virginia governor, defended parental control
So
over children's
angry.
education in a debate, to which Terry McAuliffe, the frontrunner, replied, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. Some call it a gaffe or a mistake, but mistakes don't inspire a million angry social media comments. Mistakes don't upend elections. Mistakes don't spark a prairie fire of parental dissatisfaction. Only the truth does that. End quote.
And, my pushback to that, when people are like, I said, guys, as a Virginia, I said, what is the context that McAuliffe? People forget. He was talking in the third debate about the porn in libraries. And yet here we sit, 14 months. And then you have CNN 3 nights ago, where he wants gender neutral bathrooms. And then Seeking Alpha, I shared this clip that he applauded the mass state we had a state senator, Ghazala Hashmi, organized the one down the street, the middle school I went to. And the man applauded children for protesting, for exercising their First Amendment rights.
Well, here's the thing.
And parents are still like, but it's better than McAuliffe. My answer is, no, it's not, because nothing's changed. Keep that in mind. Nothing's changed. It could not get any worse, but we've stopped fighting.
And do you know why? And this is why I wanted to bring up Betsy's book.
I gotta read that now.
No, you don't. You don't want to read it. You will. No, I did a 4-part series with my teammate, Suzanne Hamner, on the Liberty Bells, and we reviewed this book. If you see the amount of sticky notes that I have, Anne, those are the rebuttals to all the lies. And Younkin's part of the machine. Remember, DeVos bought her seat in the Trump administration for, what was it, $2 million or $200 million?
Yeah, because you can't ignore that.
And Younkin was part of the plan.
Yeah, her school choice. Yes, and it's like, so you have to remember, Younkin won this on charters, and people say, how in the world did a man? I said, because Virginia has had these same 7 or 8, I think, charter schools since 1998 when the law started. So we have been so starved. We are, and this is why I believe Virginia is the final solution. We were quiet. We haven't had charters. We didn't know what we were fighting. And now here we sit, still, after Younkin went on CNN 3 nights ago. People are still like, but...
Well, here's the thing. Charters are fascism. And here's why.
Public schools without a
because
voice.
you're taking public dollars and a private agenda. Now, a lot of people don't understand with charters, we get the parents on the school board. No, sometimes you do, but you need to understand those accrediting bodies micromanage those school boards, even for charters. So you might have cherry-picked your school board, but if they're not dancing to the accrediting body's tune, it doesn't matter. And I've got tons of research on this, Anne, on my blog. Charters under the Every Student Succeeds Act were a dummy of choice to snow the people to invest in them. Now, here's what Charlotte wrote. Here's what Charlotte proved about charters. Not only were they fascist, but they were part of the death knell for parents to have choice in where their kids went, because it would further privatize education. Now, one of the things that's so dangerous about school choice, and Younkin and DeVos are in on this, as is Trump, as is Biden, as is Clinton, as in Obama, as in all of them, is that the false argument is we have to preserve public education because, after all, private education is our enemy. No,
Right.
under school choice, and this is one of the things that Charlotte was working on when she passed, and I have made it my goal to continue this because it is so important. There are two goals to school choice. One is to kill every bit of private education known to mankind, shut it down, rebrand it as public, thereby putting it under more federal control.
Right.
She has proven that. I have picked that up to the point of where she wanted to go, which was how this impacts our right to vote and representative government, because you cannot have a federal controlled education system if you still have representation on your school boards. But
Right.
look at the global Silicon Valley in their 15 plank system to redesign America. One of the top planks was get Common Core in every state. Further down, eliminate all school boards, especially with parents, to privatize it, to put it under public-private partnership control, and that is what our government to this day is doing. So if anyone thinks that, oh, Common Core is dead, no, it's not. It's living and breathing under college and career readiness, military readiness, citizen readiness. It is under every bit of the whether you agree with any of the alternative viewpoints out there or not that we're seeing come up through the social and emotional learning or any of things that are connected with that. It doesn't matter, because the government is going to come in like they're doing and say, we're here to help you.
Right.
This is why our families are so in danger. So I don't know that Virginia is so much the example of being where we need to go, but Virginia needs to be aware of, you're the last one,
Yes.
or one of the last ones to state your independence. Now, Texas was also said, two states, Virginia and Texas, were always propped up as, we're the only two states who didn't take Common Core. BS
Right.
and horse hockey. They
Yeah.
did. They took it
Right.
under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, the apprenticeships, the career tech education, which replaced VOTEC. Through the STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, math. The STREAM, which is science, technology, reading, writing, arithmetic, engineering,
And
arts,
they've even
and
said
math.
that we didn't take Race to the Top. I found Race to the Top
Oh,
applications,
absolutely.
and it, like they were
Right.
like, we never took it. I found like 13,
You
14
did.
counties and we did. So
You did,
they
and
say, well,
here's
Virginia didn't take it. Yeah,
well,
we did.
and yes, you did, because if you look in some of the resources I did send you, the back
Mhm.
door for taking this was the data tracking that came through the career tech education or the workforce readiness. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, and this is what Virginia needs to get, is that by doing that, you just united education and labor through data points. From the
Yep.
education side, it is known as the Student Longitudinal Data System.
Yeah,
From the workforce side, it's known as the WQDI, which is known as the Workforce Data Quality Initiative. By getting the states to work together in regionalism, Ann, you just took and married that data so that it streamlines, so that not only can we predict where Johnny and Susie are going to end up working, but we can go from where
direct
they
it.
work and backtrack and align the curriculum to do what? Not academically gift me, but
Right.
to workforce ready me.
Right. So I'm real quick. I want to show
Yes.
you guys. I don't think there's any audio, but just thinking. So this is a document. Just in looking for something, I say God directs me in my research. So it's a Word document, which is, so I don't know if it's going to let me zoom in, but so it goes through the whole history of all the governors and the Advent, and so let me find what I need.
Oh, good old Governor Christie. I saw
But
him.
it's all of them. It's from Allen.
Oh,
you
yeah.
got McDonald. You've got Gilmore. Then you got Kane. You got McAuliffe. And so I mean, it's literally, and it stops at 2013. it's 1998 to 2013.
Yeah.
So what caught my eye in proving what I had already known, and considering that Virginia is 50th in the nation, when you map the NAEP scores, and people say, "What?" I'm like, "Were you at a Younkin rally?" Because I was at like 15, and you go back and watch them, pull them up on Facebook, Younkin GOTV, and the man ran on it. Like, is what I remind people. And if you pull up this report that they did in May called Our Commitment to Whatever, he literally said, if you go to the appendices, the honesty gap, they called it.
Right.
You go to the appendices, it's right there. I just have the full document. But so, let's see.
There's college and career ready standards.
Yep. Oh, and then he says, look, ACT and Achieve. It meant,
Yeah,
so,
that's the thing. Your assessment, your standardized assessment, that got you right into it, whether you actually took it or not.
Yeah, so after taking office in 2010, Governor Robert F. McDonnell signaled his support for increasing the rigor of the SOL program as Virginia came under pressure from the U.S. Department of Education to replace SOLs with the newly developed Common Core standards. He said, "We can't go back," McDonnell told the Washington Post. "We've been working on this for 15 years. So that would have put me still in high school. I'm 43 years old. And then it said, the following month, the Board of Education reaffirmed its commitment to the SOL program in opposition to the adoption of Common Core as a prerequisite for participation in federal competitive grants. Yada, yada, yada. No,
They took the education waivers, which took the data and brought to Common Core, but yet they'll sit there and tell you, oh, well, we opposed it.
Right, and it says, whatever adjustments might be warranted to ensure alignment of the SOL with the Common Core state standards can be made with the process which the Board of Education exercises constitutional authority to establish for the Commonwealth's public schools.
There you go.
You align to something, it is something. But what really, before I even noticed that, I was reading, and where did it say? Oh, here. So in 2009, our NAEP scores, there were 16 states below basic. And in 2009, where did it say it? We went from grade level competency to college and career readiness. And in the 2019 report, one state was below basic, Virginia. 16 versus, however, because they equate the scores, because if you pull up NAEP, it's going to say we're like fourth. So, and I was reading that, and I was like, right there, guys, when you have the problem and a decline in scores, at what point do we say what we're doing is wrong? And I have done that, and they don't care. It's like, I have the proof that we've been doing it for 15 years. Our children are dumber than ever, excuse me. But at what point do we say this is wrong? And they're like, well, we don't.
Well, here's the thing, and they don't care if they're wrong because they're so invested into this.
Yeah. It's in here somewhere. But I'll show, but it's called BDOE SOL History 98 to 2013, and it's got everything in here. And that's one of the, the documents that I'm like, can you guys read? But so Jennifer just said that's why it's titled Every Student Succeeds. And that's like all means all. Like education excellence. How do you get all children to achieve education excellence? You have to question, and this is just how my brain thinks, is you can never have all mean all unless. So education excellence is nothing short of the word equity.
Well, let me show you the wordplay that happened, okay? Because remember, this was a bipartisan, bicameral mess that we got, okay? From the House side, it was called the Every Child Achieves Act. From the Senate side, it was called the Student Success Act. So when they got together and they worked all their differences out, that was the title that we were left with, which was Every Student Succeeds Act. Now, the system people are going to sit here and say, oh, well, the system's failing our kids. No, the system is succeeding. Thus, we have every student succeeds. The system wants you to think that your child is succeeding, but the system is succeeding in failing them, and that's
Right.
what people need to understand. Yes,
Innate
it is
scores.
a corrupt.
You look
It is
like
it's
you're
a corrupt
fourth in the
system.
nation. You look
Well,
like
we
you're
shouldn't
fourth
even
in
be
the nation.
using the NAEP because
No.
this is part of playing into the problem, because we've dumbed down the curriculum to fit that test. And when you do that, especially under Common Core, you're propping up the very thing that you're saying you're against. So you shouldn't even be looking at NAEP. We shouldn't even be
The only
participating
reason that I look
in
at it is
PISA.
because of what we're told.
I know,
I can't
because
tell you
they're
how many
right.
parents moved here
Yeah.
based off of what great schools or NAEP said, and then got from
that's
extremely
right.
liberal states and got here and
Right.
were like, we lost so much to move here, and this is worse than what we came from.
Right. And when I say we shouldn't look at NAEP, I mean any of us. But again, we've had a system that has told us as parents to do what? Look at it. It matters. And you just showed us why. Now here's a story. Eons ago, this was back way before the educational demise that we're seeing. Okay, this was back in the 70s. My husband was in the Virginia school system. His family moved to...
One of my favorite senators mentioned, Amanda Chase mentioned that she knew your husband.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, so he's in the Virginia school system, okay? They moved to Florida. And he was months, almost a full semester ahead of every student that he came in contact with in that school system in Florida. He was bored to tears because he had been so challenged and so just really pushed to do all that he could in Virginia. But by the time he got to Florida, it was just like, well, we're just going to cover our backside.
Yeah.
So yeah, he monkeyed around for 2 months before he finally was able to have the rest of them catch up to where he was. Now I know that system doesn't exist in Virginia, much less any other state, especially Florida. Florida is another one of those poster child of illusion, because again, in Betsy's book, who's her poster boy for good things? DeSantis. DeSantis is another.
But this is just a shout out to people, is that when you're loud like me, I get intel from the cracks of Virginia you wouldn't believe. When an Uber driver knows me and has a Younkin advisory person in the back saying that he and DeSantis are running together, I tell
DeSantis.
Florida, I say, y'all better mount up, because if your golden boy partners with this, it's like I tell people, you can't even with Common Core math make 1 + 1 not equal 2.
But here's the thing, George Soros is backing DeSantis. What does that tell you, Ann?
It makes me laugh because I just shared a video from Burke, Virginia, and Fairfax at a rally I was at, where Younkin slammed Soros. Soros backed, operative agents, also known as school board members. And I'm like, now, because I was the Kool-Aid drinker, because I couldn't imagine. I think after the 2020 election, I literally said I would vote for Big Bird instead of Terry McAuliffe. And I think that God is sitting here laughing at me now because you got your wish.
Well, people need to understand, when it comes to education, as you said at the opening, there's no difference, because there should be no interaction between the Republicans and education or the Democrats in education. But yet here we are, because we've bought into that right versus left narrative.
Yes.
We don't understand when it comes to education that the
unibrow
politics
right.
are killing education.
Yeah. So make us hate each other. Like it's like
It's a
stop
divide and conquer.
Yes, make us hate each other on the history standards based on who forgot Martin Luther King, who didn't include founder of the whatever, so that people can't. And I'll show you guys in a quick second what is currently under debate that nobody understands what they're talking about. But so it's like you look at the NAEP scores and it's like, are they important? Are they not? But you have to know what to look at. So
Right.
this year, this is called this is from mapping of this. Every 2 years they do the Institute of they take all the 50 states and they quantify them to all be equal, and then they map them. It's not just like, oh, all your kids got this, all your kids got this. And so right here you can see that the only state and then they still, so that's below basic. And then you look at like proficient.
Okay, but let me point out one thing. Go back to that image, please. Okay, the reason why they have taken and mapped the states to prop up the illusion that we have to continue to align everything so everybody has a fair chance.
All means all.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. And that's like the whole dialogue of when I hear people talk about a child should not be locked into one school based on where they live. As I hear, you can't let every child pick and choose wherever they want to go in public education. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So
that's a false argument too.
Right, because my ear hears, so we have to make them all the same.
Yeah.
And that's another where the equity piece comes in.
But let's point out one thing, Ann. Equity is being used on purpose. Equality is what should be being used, but the reason why the government is choosing to use equity is because equity is a financial term. So they're putting money over people. Yes. If you really want equality in education, then let's talk equality. Yeah. We shouldn't be talking equity in education because if you look, there is U.S. Code 20, Section 1232A, that strictly prohibits any sort of federal funding, technical assistance, or anything like that, any assistance, any law, any statute, any policy to go over state education. And what have we seen our states do, Virginia included? They signed up for the federal funding and they lost their sovereignty.
Yeah, it's like global citizen. Like if I see that one more time in a standard without any of you actually looking it up, because I've said this from the beginning, if you look up global citizen, and they don't hide it, you have to have social justice, the gender fluidity. Younkin can literally never fulfill anything that we were promised because global is that you can't unremove something because you don't understand it. So
the reason why. Go ahead.
I wanted to show you, this is the actual application. When James Lane, who is now went from the division I live in, we were his guinea pigs, to the department, he was a state superintendent under Northam. And he's like the boogeyman that Younkin wants to make him out to be because he did all the blatantly racist stuff, like how to be an anti-racist educator, like, you know. And then so he quietly left, and then I followed him. There was no press. He popped up. He's Miguel Cardona, his right hand now.
Yeah.
So when he took office, I guess he redid the ESSA application.
Right. Well, the reason why I was showing Betsy's book again is because you were talking about the divide and the conquer, the global citizenship. She uses this entire book as a divide, because we're the righteous Republicans and we're going to save you from those evil Democrats. And look at what all those evil Democrats have done in education.
Yes.
And then she'll go and tell you, but I support all the things that supposedly it's just those mean old Democrats. So she's mentioned divide and conquer, global citizenship. She's talking about how truthful Younkin is, or how great DeSantis is, or what all she did to improve education while she was on her watch. No, it's all a bunch of lies to sway voters for 2024. And here's what people need to understand. It will not get better in education regardless of who is elected or reelected. They're
Right.
going to be a puppet to
Right.
continue this kick the can crap down the road.
Yeah. And, a perfect example is going to be, so this would be from the Virginia Department of Education in 2017.
Yep.
On Every Student Succeeds. Now, I know Cal, which is now
Yep.
the Aurora Institute, is the one that I tell people you have. Now, this came from Allison and Wrenching the Gears, my conversation. We had talked all summer, and
Right.
she was really helped me to understand competency
Oh yeah,
based education.
yeah. So did Charlotte. It's the Prussian Russian case system is what it
Yes.
is.
But I mean, they even emerging issues. They go back to like the 90s, and like so they give you the map. The 5 principles, and then,
Yep.
so mastery is a big one. Like Amy Gadara, and can you just in like 20 seconds people don't even know what data quality campaign or why our Secretary of Education being the founder is a problem. If you could just
Well, the quicker you can get them on that data track between the Workforce Quality Data Edition or the student longitudinal data system, the more supposed trackable they are, which means the more money that can be attached to them. And if
Right.
you're in support of education savings accounts, one of the selling points is let the money follow the child. Well, it should read, in all truthfulness, let's data mine this child to no end to pigeonhole them where we want them to land. That's what's so dangerous about this. And well, it's only money. No, it's not only money. It is data that harvests over 4,000 personal private information points, not only about your child, but your entire family. This
Yes.
is the government going places it has no business because it's violating your right to privacy. And people will
Yes.
sit there and go, oh, but my family is protected by FERPA. No, let's remember, FERPA
They
got
don't even know that
gutted.
FERPA got gutted.
FERPA got gutted under Obama, and it was under that particular executive order, which is unconstitutional, by the way, to gut it, that removed
And he didn't even use
the
Congress.
that removed that privacy that we had before, that did protect our children from having everything about them
Correct.
known. This and
Correct.
what people don't understand is, okay, the data. Well, what is in the data? Okay, heart rate.
Right.
We're
So
getting into
here,
biometrics. Yeah,
I'm just
we're
looking at my
getting into
Facebook.
heart rate.
So right here.
Yeah.
Like, so this is from my Facebook. I shared this, and it's so sorry, it's
Right.
blurry. But alignment. This is out of FERPA. Continued commitment to disaggregation. Like,
Right, which means it becomes more public.
Right.
So, in other words, instead of saying Johnny and Susie, or hey, wait a minute, let me back up. Instead of saying, okay, this percent of the population, blah blah
Right.
blah blah blah, they now go in and say
Right.
Johnny and Susie, blah 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 blah. So
like
we
when you aggregate
personalized
data,
it.
you mix it. Like
Yeah.
it, and when you disaggregate it, is what I try to explain to people. You break it apart.
Yeah.
So
You
it's like when I
personalized it,
tell
so-
parents to get a parent portal because it aggregates. It somewhat messes. What we found is that even if it's something as minimal as getting a parent portal, it will aggregate your data with theirs, which will somewhat. I mean, it's still gonna, but it does something. Is explaining
Right. Well, it's not just your heart rate. It's do you fidget? Well,
retinal scan. Like right here. Here's another one. So this is what FERPA did. Let me see.
Yeah, it absolutely did, because
So
we
this would
have
be
to measure
20
behavior.
USC 1232. This would be FERPA G. So when we talk about a biometric record, and
Right.
they are using definition of personally identifiable information.
Right. And look at there, where we've now morphed over into we have to measure biological and behavior. Sweetheart,
Facial
education was
characteristics,
never
voice
supposed to do
prints.
that. Education was not supposed to do that. That is the sort of thing that you would need to leave with the healthcare professional, not the school system.
Yeah, and it's like I tell people, if you're fill out the forms. Do not let your child get a free eye exam, because do we know no, but we know enough to say no. Like, and
In one of the articles I
yeah.
sent you,
Okay.
the road map, the data map
Amazing.
of where every data point goes once it hits not only education, but the Department of Health and Human Services. It is a scary big map, and it has been in place since Common Core rolled into town. Think about that.
I get exhausted people. They're. I mean, I had to swallow that pill, like the red pill, because I worked my butt off. But I'm the mom that you made promises to my 4-year-old, and now I'm paying because I had to fully vet and ask her, and I'm still eyes wide open because right now I can't homeschool my kids. So, and they told me, they said, we won't be here in 5 years because they take. I looked at every fund I could to see what they take. I go through my daughter's stuff. I'm all up in their business. But is that I worked my butt off to get somebody elected, and why parents are not furious, especially on what he got elected on and for, is like not.
Okay.
I have Lego Metaverse being built 2 miles down the road here, and people think that he brought a Lego plant in. I'm like,
well, okay, but people need to understand this, and the reason why folks are not more upset is because look at all the distraction the media circus is putting on, so that you are so busy you don't have time to care what is happening in the school.
Yeah. No, and that's, it got, so I wrote, because I refuse to write a parental bill of rights, because I will not write a document that limits my God-given right as a parent. So,
and that's what a lot of states are doing. Yeah, they're doing exactly
people
that.
People are applauding. We need a parental. No, you have
don't.
These innate rights. You do not. We do not want. No, it's a limiting document. And so I went at it from the education transparency, and I compiled all of the law that is still standing, that the VSBA does not teach school boards, that and because I didn't want to go at it, you're not going to give me rights that I already have.
Yeah. No, what they're doing is they're enumerating them, which means it's under control, or they're setting it aside so that, we're not going to do anything right now, but in the future we might. I mean, North Carolina's doing the same stupid thing. Georgia has done it. Florida has done it. Wisconsin has done it.
And they get
Utah
applauded by mainstream media, which for me, as a journalist by education, if they're applauding something, but again, you need to pay attention to it and look at what it really is.
It's an illusion, just like that illusion we had here in North Carolina about, oh yes, we're going to improve on homeschool freedom. No, you didn't. By pointing it out, by putting a magnifying glass on it, you actually put more limits on it, and then you blended it so that it lost its uniqueness.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to see happen with parental rights. The government is seeking to control something it has no business, and that is your rights.
So this was just what I pulled up. So this, in doing our SLDS, because this is how they got you. It's again unconstitutional to have a national database system.
Yeah, so but if we get the states to do it, guess what? The feds are going, hey, you know what? The states have already done it, so we might as well look.
So what they're doing, so this is where Virginia's data goes. And then you think about, so then from here, I didn't pull up every state and have the time. So, I mean, so Alabama's goes here, ours goes here, and then it starts this interop, and then you got Tim Kaine, who, his wife, and he's proposing bills because he had long COVID, that he wants to make all the agencies data, because that's
they already are. They absolutely already are. And you also need
labor,
to remember,
we know agriculture because of all the food, like the free food, the free lunches. That's agriculture.
You need to remember, and this is for folks who are watching who maybe don't know this, that Virginia is one of the states that is served by the Southern Regional Education Board.
I needed to pull that up real quick.
And you would be shocked at the number of Common Core machine entities that fund SREB, as I call it. And then you need to look at, wait a minute. If there's a Southern Regional Board of Education, which there shouldn't be,
somebody asked
what
me
about all the other states? Yeah, there are regional.
This is your blog, CommonCorediva.com, and I'm telling you, if you want to understand go here, immerse yourself.
But yeah, I
And
give you the skinny on what happened with SREB, and it will tell you here it was
so it
created in
is
1948 by Southern governors and legislators to advance education and improve social and economic life in the region. Now you have Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. Now, I argue that Oklahoma and Texas should even be included because when you look at a true region of the South,
yeah,
they're more west than the rest of these
yeah.
states, but it doesn't matter. Point of it is if you go further down in that article and look at the entities that are invested in Virginia as well as others, and then sit there and tell me, oh, we didn't take Common Core.
Yeah.
Bull feathers.
Bill and
You
Melinda
didn't.
Gates Foundation, which we know that,
Alfred Sloan,
yeah,
Consolidated Management, Lamar Plunkett, Lumina,
Pearson. Like, that's the one that if
Pearson.
anybody, if you see anything like with Pearson, besides Chanzuck or Bill and Melinda Gates, I mean,
Right.
you've got the Waltons, you've
Right.
got, I mean, but Pearson
And
is
this
the
is
one.
a dated, yeah, this is a dated article, but I also give you the other regional education boards. And, you know, you can go and look at who funds them. Going to be some of the same people. But you've got the Western states, you got the multi-states, you've got New England, Midwestern, the Consortium of State and Regional
Consortium.
Education.
Like, that's the one, like, anytime
Right.
that you see a word that's like, it's literally like the collective. Like, any kind of education
Right.
consortium
Right.
is,
But ask yourself, why is education broken into regions? Why do you think that would be, Anne?
well, you got to align the regions to then align,
The data.
right,
And then to be a good member state.
right. You know, so this was the VDOE 2017 ESSA. So this was the first thing that grabbed my attention. I was like, okay. So I know Cal, which is now Aurora Institute, same thing.
Right. In a call, yeah.
And then people will be like, oh, equity, bad. And then it goes into what snapshot of competency-based education.
Yeah.
We were emerging at that point. We are now advanced. We were advanced, I think, 2 years later.
Yep.
Oh, wait, never mind. Maybe that's not it. No, we were still emerging in 2016, but I pulled up a different document from like 2019, and we were advanced. Voila.
Oh, yeah.
The county that I live in, Chesterfield, in an article in our leftist newspaper, the Chesterfield Observer, said, we have not ordered textbooks in 20 years because
And they're spot on.
Virginia has none.
Yeah,
Because
but
they've been developing virtual Virginia since 2004.
yeah, absolutely. And here's the funny thing. Look at your state budgets. Do they still have a textbook commission? I know North Carolina does, but North Carolina doesn't use textbooks either. But we still have funding that goes for the textbooks. So you have to ask yourself, well, if we're not using physical textbooks, what is that commission doing? And where's the money going?
Right. Yeah, and I'm so tired. I have a meeting tomorrow with someone high up in our school board, our school division. And they're too expensive. I said, so-and-so, I have every contract that you've ever signed on every piece of ed tech software. You're going to tell me that a book for every student that's going to be reused over and over is more expensive than this $500,000.
Right. At one point, North Carolina had 19 different ed tech contracts. And I've got copies of those. Yeah.
Each division here is separate. So.
Oh yeah.
We've found 80 to 100 Loudoun County had sole source, which means there was no bidding because they've even written the Public Procurement Act to where, because sole source used to be you had to have an emergency. They've even written the Public Procurement Act because I tried to go after them for that, so that sole source, they no longer have, that everything is sole source. And so that's how you end up with aligned. Well, is that everything's aligned. But real quick, is that what's extremely disturbing for me, hold on, let me get to it. I live in Chesterfield County. Chesterfield County is, so here's the divisions: Fairfax, Frederick. So it's a mix of like big and who. Like, but what's really disturbing, and Lisa Logan actually sent this to me. I won't pull up the image, but Chesterfield County is an institutional partner of INOCAL.
Okay. I'm not surprised at all. I'm really
And
not.
that, so Lane came through here, and he's now, so this is where people are like, I just can't subscribe to this conspiracy theory stuff. And I'm like, then you're delusional. If you think that the division that we live in, being an institutional partner in a global company of competency-based education, do you know who the Pearson, Intel were these silver and gold like corporate partners?
Yeah.
We are a school division in the middle of Virginia. Why are we an institutional member of INOCAL? I mean, I know, because I know how many states we're providing virtual education to from
Well,
here.
it's because some tech company is profiting off of all this. That's the only reason why. It absolutely is. Now, I know you wanted to address the kindergarten standards. Let's do that, because I don't know how much longer we have, but I wanted to point out a couple of things. Yeah.
Okay. So this is what, and so across the state, starting today in Williamsburg, they're having town halls on something called
Delphi meetings, you mean?
Huh?
Delphi meetings, you mean? They're not town halls. No, they've already arrived at the solution. They just want to give you the illusion.
But for commenting sessions, like, because so no, so it's not an actual like dialect. No, they're calling them town halls.
Yeah.
To which the Virginia Dems and the ACLU, somebody sent me the Zoom call that they were having to organize the other night, and that was interesting.
Oh, I'm sure it was quite telling, but yeah.
And of course, we were able to. I mean, they're literally organize. They're talking about the next transgender walkout that they're going to have. This time, it's going to have drag queens. Like, that's how who. But that's the problem, is that we don't think like that. Like, and it's sad. It's hard because it's like we need to, but then it's like I don't even know how to process starting to like think in that. I don't know, like. How do you, it's like I was reading Rules for Radicals again the other day, and I was like, we don't have time to come up with an 80-year immigration
No, we don't. We absolutely don't. So here's what I would say. We can't do it by ourselves. We have to have like-minded people, and each of us take a part of this huge issue, and we use our gifts to help each other quickly come to some sort of solution. Okay. Yeah. So in other words, I'm the researcher. I would give you the evidence, then you would take it and you would take it a little further, then you would hand it off after you got through with it. And by the time that the group has finished with all their different talents, you got a solution, because there's no way.
He's a perfect example. He said, so he's in Winchester.
Right.
When I started this, I would not conform. I started a nonprofit. I would not conform to any of the parent special interest groups. People told me I'd never get anywhere. I'd never get my message across. I was too much. I had too much knowledge. I was too across the aisles. And I had to conform to the right or the left. Well, being a principles-driven individual, and an intellectual individual too, I will not dumb myself down to ignore the truth.
Right.
And I don't have the ability to not speak the truth. And I don't know if that, I mean, I've been playing for 15 years. I don't know if somehow that my recovery plays into that.
I don't know, but that's good of your person who commented
he's an example of when people told me that I would never get my message across. I can probably tell you that I have somebody or a squad of people in 80% of our divisions that gets it. And so it might be the dull roar that is sparking the brush fire, but we get it. Like, there is
That's good. And if there's anything I can do, get me to Virginia and I will absolutely
Yes.
help.
We
Absolutely.
are planning on getting Lynn here, and I would, if you talk to Anita, I would love to get. So if you
Right.
guys are on here and want to help, because we don't take dark money, because that makes you shut your mouth. I mean,
Absolutely it does. Well,
you
one of the
pay for your relevance in this state and anywhere. Is
yeah,
that so? The big groups that have parent rights anything or da da da, they drive me nuts because
yeah.
they dilute what I'm trying to do, which is actually speak the truth. And they look at me like, oh, she's crazy. Who is she? She's a nobody. I'm a nobody because I don't take any money. We're funded by the people for the people.
But let me back up. Okay, you're not a nobody. You're a somebody who's making a difference, and believe it or not, you are more valuable than all those sellouts. Now, as far as these kindergarten standards, the one of the first things that I noticed on the
Okay.
opening pages was that it said it was copyrighted, but it never gives you the authors. So
Right.
my big question for homework for everybody in this state who's concerned about this: who the heck wrote these and
I
why are they
will tell you.
copyrighted?
I will
Because
tell
we
you
go ahead.
from the a member of my family who is a liberal educator in Northern Virginia. She was part of the original development of the standards, and
Okay.
she said
Okay.
her biggest regret was ever being part of this. And she gave me so Harcourt Brace, and I've done all kinds of research about who.
Okay.
So you have to think about
Well, good.
they are as so Houghton Mifflin. So you have to think too. So the
Okay,
people
they're
writing
Common
the
Core aligned.
standards,
Yeah.
the people writing the standards are then the people selling the ed tech
Mm-hmm.
to align to the standards.
Absolutely, they are. So, okay, with it being Hofflin Mifflin, they are if you look on my blog, CommonCorediva.com, type them in, you're going to find that they have aligned to the Common Core. So, okay, we
Yes.
know who wrote it. Now, let's point out
And
one
they
thing though.
also
But you
use
copyrighted,
the C3 framework,
yep, I see that.
which that's that this whole thing is literally it's the federal. It's like the
Right.
C3
And this
framework is
the
what this is.
C3 social study standards, I exposed those back a few years ago, and it's civics, college, or career is what the 3 C's stand for. But I wanted to point out, when you copyright standards for education, you are taking away control or freedom. You're propping up control by the entity that copyrighted them and taking away the freedom of those who are supposed to put this into motion. So this
Right.
is Common Core all over again.
Yeah.
Why are we seeing, even at kindergarten
Look
levels,
at this.
and
They talk about age appropriateness. Okay, this is
right, and
I
then we've
have a
started
kindergartner. I have a
right.
kindergartner who is at home going g frog.
Yeah, and
And
you're
so
going to throw this at them. Yeah,
so
that's
I in the
amazing.
first so skills and also next to me as I'm in the carpool line, I'm comparing. I have the 2008 because Andrew
Mm-hmm.
Rotherham Clinton was on the 2008 Board of Education when they were done. 2016 is where the drive for skills came in, that
Yeah,
revision. And so I'm sitting there comparing the two, and I'm like, kindergarten, it's like learn to share, literally learn to
I
share,
know.
learn the continents. That's how basic, like that's what it should be. And when I tell people there's no joy in education, so this is now what skills
Oh,
they
yeah.
want.
And that was the thing that jumped off the page at me, because in kindergarten, the purpose you put your child in kindergarten is so they learn letters, numbers, colors, and they learn play. They learn family, because that is their immediate realm. You don't get into this kind of stuff until probably what we would have called upper elementary, or what we call junior high school, or even high school. And if
They
you
have
look at the
taken
order of which they teach all this, it is absolutely so convoluted. It's like, no wonder the kids are not doing well.
and that's the thing. So every Republican legislature that I have an ounce of respect left for that has critical thinking on their
Mhm.
election page, I'm like, take it off. Why?
Because which definition are you
I
using? The
said,
Common Core,
do
or are
you
you using the
understand what it
original?
is? Well, what do you mean? Right there. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
understand that critical thinking cannot come at the end, or it's supposed to come at the end, not the beginning.
Because here's why. As the brain develops, and this is psychologically proven, okay, and I've got doctors I've interviewed and been on their shows that can back this one up. The reason why critical thinking in its original form was done so late in K through 12 was because as your brain develops at the tender ages of kindergarten, you can't handle critical thinking or skill-based education. What you can handle is your immediate area. That's it.
Look at this.
By the time they get to high school,
yes,
I know. T-charts and Venns. Yeah,
T-charts and Venn diagrams to make informed economic decisions.
Right. I understand.
I know you do, but like people there, and I'm like, we're looking at the wrong thing. Stop looking for what's racist, what's not, how many founding fathers they left out, and read the words.
Well, now hang on just a minute, okay? I know Virginia, the reason why they are supposedly redoing these standards is because they're so proud of their foundation in America's history.
Well, it's required every 7 years.
And I understand that.
Okay.
Now, I know that history doesn't always tell the full story.
Right.
The reason why is because I have an ancestor who signed the Declaration of Independence, was a key freedom lover. And he was maligned. He was falsely charged, stripped of all his power and all his wealth because he didn't want to conform to the then system. So don't tell me that all history is totally accurate, because it's not. And the reason why I know this about my ancestors is because someone went in and dug out the truth and then compared it to, if you go look him up on the Library of Congress, you'll see the cherry-picked version. You won't get his letters and his papers of what he was really trying to do.
All means all. You can't tell all the good, all the bad. Like, and so it's like history is not what we're teaching here. It's social studies skills.
Well, of course it's not. And go look at how social studies has been turned on its ear.
Like I have a geopolitical war history master's because of my love of history. I grew up with history.
Right.
Okay. It's like it's not just war history. I was just so enamored in
Well, I loved history
with
too.
World War I, World War II, and so just wear the mask. To me, all I heard was just wear the star. And so from the first second, I was like, not until you prove to me why I have to. Like, but real quick. So I know you have to go, but so civics. Okay, this is what right here. It says, taking turns sharing and working well with others for the good of everyone else. And people are like, and I'm like, you're gonna have nothing, you're gonna love it. Like, this is totally dystopian, and if you don't understand, like, we have to do it as early as possible. Like,
but look at the next one. Look at E.
Yes.
Okay, what 5-year-old do you know that has mastered self-control, Anne?
Well, that's the whole thing I argue with people about why self-regulation in 5-year-olds is evil. I found an article, of course, from Blue Dot UNESCO that talks about why do they need self-regulation? Because to teach them to sit in front of computers all day.
Yeah, exactly.
And it goes back to the Adderall. How long have they been telling parents that your kids have ADHD and medicating them so that they'll sit still?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them.
I know.
But what got me
again,
here,
this goes back to that measuring behavior and how twisted that is.
Yeah, and I've showed the DESA. We use DESA. K through 8 teachers do it, the behavior screener. Students self-report 9 through 12 here. So they're talking about copious amounts of behavioral data. And people talk about panorama. Like Merrick Garland, it's got to be bad. They don't even know what it is.
Right.
And I'm like, it's a dashboard of your child's non-cognitive skills. Well, what are they doing with it? Because they're not behaving any better. Is what I said, is that, no, they're using that to see how malleable they are and what education tract they are then going to drive their kid into, because we've watched it happen on kids in the same class that are supposed to be taking, because textbooks are what? Physical documents, a roadmap.
Yeah.
Every child gets the same one.
Mm-hmm.
With all of this different stuff, when they say personalized learning, and Jillian Balo, who's now quit, but when she says we are using special education as the foundation because every child will have an individual education plan, tell me, like, what does that not? And then tell me how any human teachers available to do that. It's not. It's AI and algorithms. Like,
Yeah, it absolutely is. And personalized learning is a sham under
yeah,
the
think
Common
about
Core
it.
system.
Why
It
would
is.
you? All means
Because it's all computer
personalized.
based.
Right. Is that what does that mean, personalized? Like, you have to think about like what that means.
It's one of those tickle your ear words, dear. That's
Yeah.
exactly
Oh, I
what it
know.
is.
But I tell people, and I said, why do you want do you think that they're personalizing it to benefit your child?
Well, that's
No,
what they want you to think.
Right. They've determined what your child's skills are going to be useful for.
Mm-hmm.
I was at an Orange County school board meeting, and the man literally said, I was one of the only, I fell out of my seat. 50 to 60% of jobs, this was in a strategic planning, guys. If you're not paying attention to that, when you have strategic planning plans being formed in your county, pay attention. He said 50 to 60% of jobs for these children will have not been created yet.
So how can you possibly educate them? This has been, when Lamar Alexander said that, I'm like, so how in the world are you going to teach them for something that doesn't exist? No, this is where we need to get back to, can Johnny and Susie read? Can they write? Can they spell? Do they know
Right.
how to think, not what to think? And
Right.
this is where the system is succeeding at failing them.
Right. And so right here, okay, anybody who's ever taken like Psych 101, the age of reason, kids have no cause and effect. They cannot connect the dots of their actions. But right here in kindergarten, recognizing cause and effect relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I saw that in the 2016 standards. Where they're talking, I was like, 5-year-olds have I have one every day I come home, has no idea how to understand
we can't
the ramifications of her actions.
That. Right, we cannot comprehend that, but we're going to expect that.
Oh, they added Juneteenth, isn't that precious?
Oh, goodness. Well, those were the glaring things that I saw in these
But that
standards.
was just like, if I showed people that first page, and right there, if you don't understand, like, that.
Well, could you scroll up just for a second? I saw the stackable thing, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Look at this. It's all out of whack. Right. It is so out of whack.
Community.
No. In kindergarten, it should not be community. It should be family. It should be family because that is their immediate. That is their Virginia. Community.
And then you go world. The world.
No, that should come in high school.
The world.
No.
Then we go to Virginia. Then we go to United States. But
this is all out of whack.
What's most disturbing is.
Oh, I see CE. Yeah, I see CE. Common Era.
Yep. So what's most disturbing is how early that we are seeing like the
world.
Well, yes, that, and so our curriculum in Chesterfield County. Now, keep in mind, our kids can't read, our kids can't write.
But we're going to expect them to fill out cause and
college
effect.
Syllabus. Okay,
yeah.
They can take. There's hip hop as literature, but then you've got women's studies, you've got sociology, you've got, and keep in mind these kids don't have the basic academic knowledge to function if we were ever to write the world, and they're teaching them college level classes, and it's baffling to me. But the way that they're teaching this stuff is not one that it creates the problem of there's really everything is done based on experience. So we talked about what education excellence or Virginia's for learners. Okay, a learner is not a student. A learner is like a factory employee getting trained. Is that all of these words, a student is not a learner, knowledge is not education. The word experiences. So everything is taught, even go through here. What is your experience?
Yeah.
So how
What is your
they
experience?
experience their perception of what happened in history. So it's not teaching facts.
Yeah.
It's teaching, here's what happened. How do you feel about it?
Right. How do you feel?
How do you feel
And a
about it?
5-year-old is not going to know how they feel because they don't understand that sort of stuff. Now, I don't know how much you're going to share of everything that I sent for you
I am
in
going
the
to write up a
archives.
Substack with it and use it all together and put it
And
all
that's
together.
fine, but I wanted to point out to the audience, okay, from Goals
Yes.
2000, I did mention that. That was
That is
under
something people have to know too.
yes, that was under President G.W. Bush. I give you Charlotte Iserbyte's article on that one. Then I give you from my blog in 2014, the superintendent of Virginia's Board of Education was included in using alternative education, especially special needs students, to align workforce readiness to Common Core. You'll also see the education flex waivers that I did mention. Those will now why
I'm
this is
sharing some of these in
important.
comments.
Yeah, why this is important to the people of Virginia is because under those flexibility waivers, and it causes your school to become known as a federally quasi-health organization that can receive federal funding for Medicaid, thus double dipping into the Medicaid system, which is also against the law. So I give you that.
Well, that was an issue that when Younkin came in last year, the Medicaid stuff came up for mine.
Absolutely. Backdoor proof for you from 2008 when Common Core was rolled out about Virginia. That will be on there as well. Then, of course, the SREB article, you showed that. Current sources for your Virginia education waivers because they do get recycled every year.
But what's crazy, you need to notice, they have, so they redid the VDOE site.
Right.
And they did not reroute. I'm talking 10, 15 years of documents now go nowhere. So I found Virginia is for learners.virginia.gov, which is where they moved the site. They rerouted nothing. So you're talking about every document from the last 15 years.
And if you can, go ahead and get them and print them because
that
the paper trail,
I've always saved everything as PDF. But real quick, so Iserbyte, you want to talk about like the original, like, so you sent me this yesterday. So on October 28th, she sent out an urgent alert and about Younkin, and you're talking about how great he was, and then what was comical was a week later, who is the real Glenn Younkin? She's humble enough, just like me, to be like,
I made a mistake. Yep.
Stop here, like, and and I'll share this, and so if you, and God bless. I mean, I think about all the wonderful Ephraim. God, if they were still here, I feel like.
Well, it's an honor to be following in her footsteps. It really, really is.
And it is an honor to be following in your footsteps.
Oh,
and,
thank you.
You know, the fact that I have been able to, you know, Deb, you, Anita, I mean, Allison, you know.
Yeah,
I tell people I've learned everything from different states because I was aware enough to go, if it's going on here, how can it not be going on here?
Yeah, and the misnomer that what goes on in Virginia education is just for Virginia is BS and horse hockey. It's not same thing for any of the states. It's not. It's a collective thing. But yes, Charlotte did say, hey, you know, I was wrong, and then she goes to show you the roots of Younkin and how toxic he is. Yeah. Now, as far as back to the archives, the other things that people will need to know about in Virginia. I don't know if Representative Bobby Scott is still in office. It's not my.
He's not in office, but you did.
He's still floating around
Scott,
somewhere. But he supported the Educratic BS even before Every Student Succeeds Act. And I give you the foundation that he helped lay is firmly in place. This is from 2015. Then I wrote an article back in 2020 where the University of Virginia was once again holding.
UVA is the pit of
they were holding yet another symposium.
Pay for success. Like I tell people, anything coming out of UVA. Yeah. Like who was it that just? Cheney just got a job teaching at UVA. Okay, so Rotherham taught at UVA, and Rotherham is the Mark Tucker that nobody talked about. I told you about in reading his
Absolutely.
Podesto emails from the Clinton library, I came across this one with between him and Clinton talking about the third way
Oh
with
yeah,
Blair. With
third way is in Biden's back corner, because
right,
when Obama was president and Biden was vice president, there was a workforce summit that third way sponsored, and Biden was the biggest cheerleader. But even Liberty University is
yes,
using Common Core. So I give you
yes.
the evidence for that in the archives as well. Now, I know that West Virginia is not part of Virginia, but y'all share a border, you share an
I've had West
agenda.
Virginia reach out to me before, so it's good to
Yeah,
have that.
well, I even included them because you've got so much garbage going on over there. And then, other than that,
I've also
that
had
was everything that I had for
Pennsylvania has reached
everyone
out to
in the
me.
archives.
But yeah, so you can just go to her blog and type in Virginia, but and it's
Well, the
she's
reason why I wanted to bring those particular ones up, Anne, is because it took me hours to find Virginia specific articles, because remember, so many people were under the misnomer that Virginia was never in it. I even wrote one where someone from Virginia said, I'm so glad you did this, because I've been trying to tell people for years, yes, we got it, and no one believes me. But I don't remember which article it was. I mean,
I
are
got
you
into
kidding me?
an
I have
argument.
thousands and thousands of articles that I've written. So this is why I wanted to take the time
Yeah,
to get them, so that people aren't having to waste time, because we
yeah,
don't have time to waste.
right. But I actually got a teacher in Henrico
Mhm.
County at the Republican women's meeting. I don't go to these things usually, but someone running for Senate asked me to come to try and explain education to them. And she taught, so because she was a teacher,
Right.
we did not have Common Core. Why are you saying? Because you were a teacher and you were told that? Because I happen to have the document right here that
Yeah.
says where Bob McDonald said we did. She
Yeah.
was like, let me see that. But it's like people really need to like. I put up on our Facebook page a little survey for the
Hmm.
people running for Senate, and it was like, if you, because they don't have anybody education in their wheelhouse, is what they say.
Hmm.
If you don't, and an education policy, which is polity, comes across, what do you do? A, research until you figure it out. B, ask your Chamber of Commerce. C, ask your stakeholders. D, ask parents and constituents. E, and then vote R, no matter what. D, vote your governor. Or, hey, bipartisan is always great. And people that I think are great, checking Chamber of Commerce is like, that's a signal that you're either
You
stupid or
don't want
swamp
to check
swimming.
them. They're in on
No,
this.
that's what I tell people is I say, okay, then I'm going to give you the opportunity to determine whether you're stupid or swamp swimming. Once you're no longer stupid, you determine, because that's going to be, you're either a rhino or you don't know what you're talking about. Like, but real quick, I just wanted to
Yes.
share this. So this would be the World Economic Forum, America's Economic Davos 2020.
Oh
And why I
boy.
say that, listen to the words. Hold on, I don't have audio on because I took it off because you were echoing. Hang on one sec. This is one that it's been really hard getting people to understand, like, why this is such a problem. And I'm like, keep in mind, this was right. Not only do you have a governor who's the year before this was talking about China's economic outlook,
Right.
but
jobs today in the United States. Yeah. And so
hold on.
we're going to figure this out. There's a million more job openings than there are people willing to take those jobs today in the United States. Yeah. And so we're going to figure this out because we have to. And when you look at the opportunity to sell a new product or open a new facility or launch a new service, and if you don't have the right folks to do it, go find out how to do it, and you partner with the community college, and you come up with a job training program, and you go to the service alumni fairs, and you literally, business is going to figure this out because we have to. The economy's growing. There's new job opportunities, and we need to fill them.
Let's talk about this.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. What?
Can you just, am I crazy for flipping out over that 15 seconds? Or is that like,
no? Did you see? I mean, I'm doing this, Okay, first of all, he doesn't cite his source. Where did you get the statistic that there are 1 million more jobs than there are people to fill them?
Right.
Where did he get that? He
Right.
doesn't tell you.
No.
So he's throwing a number out there. Then he tells you, oh, well, we'll go to the community college. We'll go to the local workforce board. Do you not understand that community colleges are chosen by national organizations that are in the Common Core machine?
Yes.
As the
John Tyler
Camelot
just became Brightpoint, and
As
you know
the-
about the Brightpoint, that whole thing. Our community college right up the street just last year became Brightpoint. Like it literally became
But-
like
Walter Bumpus, the president of the National Group for Community Colleges. This was, I don't even know if he's still in office, but when I wrote this article, he was. And I gave the clip for the speech where he said that, community college is the Camelot when it comes to education, because we're able to get those who are coming out of public school. We're able to get those coming out of private school or homeschool. We're able to get those who are returning to work for whatever reason. We're able to get those who are coming back into society from prison. And we are the perfect melding ground. And then if you go on to read his speech, or listen to his speech, it's all about how to take education, remove the academics, and put in what? Workforce training. Now, Virginia Fox is a really good buddy of
I
Glenn
sent you these
Younkin.
pictures. So this is what it looks like in my
Yeah.
daughter's 6th grade exploratory 11-year-old. This is what it looks like. So
Yeah.
community college, and it's like
Well, when we
Generally-
fast track education to get them to hurry up to learn so they can hurry up and earn, what do you think they're going to choose?
right,
And
but then
it's
they look and say,
not-
look, more costly, 60,000
Yeah.
or more a year. And then it goes on, and then right here, which is what is that, but then they say Longwood University, $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, so I tell people is that they're literally deterring, and then they went through this whole. I mean, so that was all there was for colleges, and then they went through all of this VOTEC, and then this create a lesson plan, and it was like
Yeah.
worksheets. Ew, like the teacher
Yeah.
literally wrote that, like, ew, don't use paper, like, but so that's what it looks like. Is that? But that's what it looks like for a 6th grader.
Yeah, well, they're doing the fast track, and this is one thing that we've had so many people like Charlotte and Anita and myself warn you about. Do you really see what is happening? We are not educating them to have academic prowess.
No,
We're absolutely not. And
No.
if we keep sending them there, then whose fault is that? It's ours.
right.
If we keep funding it with our taxes, whose fault is it? It's ours.
Yep. And that's the place that that I'm at with Virginia, where it's like, if you're not part of this, like if you're contributing to the problem, whether it's your silence or your blind disbelief, despite the fact that our governor, who wrote on the back of a victim of a transgender rape into office, has now said that he's okay with gender, and he's applauding our children for walking out during transgender adult organized. Not to mention, he's leaving, so the transgender policy, once it ever goes through, he's not forcing it. So my division has had parental rights. So we have a Republican governor who, and the jab is getting ready to get added to our schedule. Everything he promised would not happen. But the thing is that parental rights, that's an executive order by law that you on day one, that it's not optional for you to leave up to divisions whether they can adopt, whether to reinstall parental rights. Is that you took an oath of office to uphold the Constitution, and that's how basic it is that you can't leave that up to localities to develop, because here you never know. They have plans made out. Your parents don't affirm you, then okay, who are your trusted individuals? And when I tell people that it's hell here, it is hell, especially because the rest of the nation is going to follow suit, and that's what's so scary about it.
Right. Absolutely.
But thank you for coming on. And,
Oh, no problem.
And we will get together, and I'm going to use a bunch of your sources and cite you and write a Substack. And thank you for breaking all this down, because people hear it from me, I think, all the time. But having somebody else with 20 years under their belt,
Yeah.
I didn't need to be affirmed. But I think that hearing it from... If I hear that damn word one more time. But I think that, hearing it from somebody else, how problematic these things that make me go are.
Right.
And that in education, there is one party. And until we acknowledge that, everybody can have different political views on abortion, guns, all that stuff.
But here's one thing we need to remember. We should divorce ourselves from the politics of this and get down to what really matters, and that is protecting the children, protecting the students. And our students are not just our children. They are you and I sometimes, if we're going back to school, or they might be our neighbor. We should be about the person, not the politics.
Right.
We absolutely should. So, Anne, thank you so much for having me. If there's anything that I can do to help
we are going to have you up. I'm
just
talking to Bobby, my co-founder, and we are definitely going to get that. I got to get the dates, because I'm sure after a couple weeks it's shifted. But we are going to have an actual education academic summit, I'm going to talk to Anita. If anybody wants to donate, it's in the link for Lynne too, because we are self-propelled people. We don't take funding, because when you take funding, they muzzle you.
Right.
And
for
so
me
for
to be there, we're going to have funds, because
for her to come here. So if you want to have an actual how to get, what it is, academics, this is not it. And I would love to get Anita to come down too. And I have some other teachers from across, the state. When I've spoken to them, some outspoken, we actually have a couple that are speaking truth. But I would love to actually have, because all the ones that they have, we have another one with Heritage, Middle Resolution, Americans for Prosperity.
Those are wolves in sheep's clothing, my dear.
They are. Yes, they are. Yep. And Heritage, I think, is the one that people are most like, but they've written all this.
No. Go to Charlotte's website, Deliberately Dumbing Down, and type in Heritage Foundation. You will get such a fast-track education on what a neoconservative group that is. Oh, yeah. It'll wake you up.
Yeah. The new Republican, is that we pander to the middle, they keep going to the left. And so Younkin keeps talking about this new Republican. So people like me, we're the radicals, because we are firm in our conservative, Constitution. But to him is that he's stated that's the whole CNN event was just about him wanting to be middleman, make everybody happy.
He's gearing up. He's gearing up for an election too, so he's got to make himself look good.
Well, the thing is that DeVos or not, is that there's too many MAGA that, and it's like and whether that's the answer or not, I don't know, but I do know. Nope. It's not. I get it, but if I had to pick between a Trump or a Younkin. Because I kicked down Younkin's door and became part of that. I will drive to Mar-a-Lago, and I will kick the door down, and I will insert my life into him, and become his worst nightmare, like I promised Younkin I would if he lied to me and my kids. But I just can't say, oh my God, no, enough, because what he's going to do is he's going to ride on the fluff of what DeSantis says he did, and it's like if one more person tells me that Younkin banned CRT, I'm like, I'm gonna smack you in the face, because no, you don't even know what you're talking about. But he's gonna ride. Oh well, if DeSantis is having him as a running mate, he must be great, because DeSantis has fluffed himself up, and the blind belief that DeSantis is not wonderful is just too much for people. They can't imagine it. But is like with the Republican. I mean, this is why a two-party system was never meant to be.
Yeah, that's what Jefferson told us. You want to kill America, get a two-party system, and that's precisely what we've done.
And then have a Republican that wants to move it to a one-party system. Admittedly, we must all meet in the middle. No. No, what is that? It's called socialism. You can't like.
Yeah.
But all right, you're awesome. I appreciate you, and let's aim for. Will tell you guys the next like 6 weeks we will do this academic education summit of truth, and because we are so absolutely free, our existence is literally rebellion, is what I tell people. That's how free I am.
It is.
So let go of your political correctness.
And let's
that
start
got us
talking
here.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, start talking. As long as you have love and truth in your heart, let your political correctness go, because that got us here too, is trying to not hurt anybody's feelings.
Thanks,
So,
Anne.
all right. Thanks, dear. Bye.